This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Public speakers will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The chair will call upon public speakers at the appropriate time. Each public speaker is requested to state their name and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Public speakers who wish to speak in person should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Public speakers participating by Zoom who are wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of any written correspondence would like to speak during the meeting, they should raise their hand or submit a public speaker card. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Emily, could you please conduct roll call?
Member Ash,
Present.
Member Erickson,
Present.
Member Everidge,
Present.
Member James,
Here.
Member Miller,
Present.
Member Pace,
Here.
Member Patel,
Here.
Member Stark,
Here.
Member Wayne,
Here.
Vice Chair Esselsago,
Present.
Chair Lovejoy.
Present.
All right, we do have a quorum with members Banker, Carr, Saunders, Shakarian, and Vedantam absent.
Thank you, Emily. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item that is not part of the agenda? If so, please submit a public speaker card or raise your virtual hand and staff or I will call on you. Emily, have we received any written or remote public comment?
We did receive a written public comment today from Rosa Esquivel that was distributed to the committee.
Very good. And we appreciate the public comment to Member Esquivel. The next, does any of the committee member want to comment on the comment? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, which includes the summary of actions from the March 25th meeting and acknowledgement of the member attendance log. Are there any changes or comments from the committee?
Nope. So moved.
Okay, was that Member Ash?
Yep.
Okay, Member Ash has a motion to approve the
Minutes as written. Consent calendar.
consent calendar.
Oh, the consent calendar, that's right.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
That's Member Miller. Emily, could you please conduct a roll call?
Member Ash,
Aye.
Member Erickson,
Aye.
Member Everidge,
Aye.
Member James,
Abstain.
Member Miller,
Aye.
Member Pace,
I'll abstain.
Member Patel,
Yes.
Member Stark,
Yes.
Member Wayne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Esselsago,
Aye.
Chair Lovejoy.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously with members James and Pace abstaining and members Banker, Carr, Vedantam, Shakarian absent.
Thank you, Emily. As we do not have our members from Martinez, I'm going to jump to our second
Chair?
item.
So they are joined via Zoom.
Oh, okay, very good. Then we will not jump to our second item. Okay, so on a regular agenda item, we have two items. The first item is an action item that will be introduced by Matt Kelly and presented by Michael Cass and Srinas Mukdevi.
Thank you, Chair Lovejoy. Good evening, Citizens Advisory Committee members. Matt Kelly, Director of Planning here at CCTA. Tonight, we have the City of Martinez checklist. As you know, that's our county seat. one of kind of our mid-sized cities in the county. This is our penultimate checklist for calendar years 2022 and 2023. And so just relish in the fact that we're almost done for this cycle. But to get us there, we'll need a presentation from Martina's staff. So I will turn it over to Michael Cass. He is the Assistant Community and Economic Development Director for the city, and I'll let him introduce his staff. Michael?
Great. Thank you, Matt. Let me quickly share my screen. Making sure you can see the presentation. Okay. So good evening, members of the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. My name is Michael Cass, and I am the Assistant Community and Economic Development Director for the city, oversee planning, housing, and sustainability. I'm joined by Srinivas Muktevi, who is the Assistant City Engineer.
Michael, sorry, one moment. Can you change your display settings so that they can see the full screen slides?
If you could put it into presenter mode. Right now, we're seeing your notes.
Perfect. Is that better?
Great, thank you.
Great. Again, so to start with, action plans for routes of regional significance, items that were accomplished during the reporting period. We collaborated with MTC, Save the Bay, and the Bay Trails Collaborative on Bay Trail completion. We're working to complete the couple segments that have not been constructed. We also received funding and completed our downtown parking study. Subsequent to the adoption of the study, we've been working on implementation through some support from CCTA and MTC. We also, during the reporting period, adopted a local roadway safety plan to address safety needs and improvements for high priority arterials. Excuse me. From a general plan amendment standpoint, there were 3 amendments that were completed during the reporting period. First, we made a minor amendment to our land use element where we removed the reference to floor area ratios. We didn't eliminate that requirement, but we removed it from the general plan and added that requirement to our zoning ordinance to allow for increased flexibility and to be more development friendly. We also did a comprehensive update to our growth management element. This was in following a comprehensive update to our general plan that was accomplished shortly before either Srinivas or I joined the city. And then finally, we adopted the 2023 and 2031 housing element, which was subsequently certified in 2025. We had a handful of projects where there were conditions of approval that were incorporated as part of them that specifically relate to transportation related elements. So we had a residential subdivision, the Laurel Knoll subdivision. There was a change of conditions that was requested, and that change of conditions was approved by our city council. It involved the elimination of the requirement for a vehicular gate, which resulted in improving the flow of traffic and providing increased accessibility for emergency vehicles. We also have Mission Point Baptist Church, which is going through a fairly substantial addition and remodel. As part of that project, which is currently under construction, they're required to provide sidewalk improvements along Hiller Lane, connecting 2 previously unconnected stretches, improving pedestrian circulation. For the River House Hotel project, which is an existing mixed-use project, which is going through a substantial rehabilitation and adding in 9 new additional housing units. They're required to provide an ADA accessible sidewalk clearance along Alhambra Avenue and Main Street in our downtown, along with ADA compliant ramps. And then similar to other jurisdictions, All development projects involving new development are required to pay traffic impact fees, and those can be paid either at issuance of building permit or prior to certificate of occupancy if arrangements are made. From a housing production standpoint, I am providing more information for additional years than required, but notably for 2023, we had 84 units where building permits were issued. The majority of the construction that was involved as part of this project was completing the Laurel Knolls project, which I previously mentioned, as well as a number of ADUs. It's important to note, and I made reference to it, for part of this reporting period, neither Srinivas nor I were here. Both our engineering and planning divisions have been substantially restaffed. We did start a portion of this reporting period, though, and made a number of housing policy improvements. Some examples of those are the city adopted our inaugural legislative platform, setting the framework for which the city council, notably the mayor and our city manager, can advocate on behalf of the city. We also did a comprehensive update to our accessory dwelling unit regulations. And then finally, we did a series of rezonings associated with our housing element, as well as associated with increasing the potential development ability in certain areas. The overlay districts, 3 of them were adopted. They include our Alhambra Avenue overlay district, which is along our Alhambra Avenue corridor, roughly from Highway 4 to the edge of our downtown. We have our community services overlay district, which involves religious institutions and properties owned by nonprofit organizations spread throughout the city. And then we have our affordable housing overlay district, which is centralized around our John Muir Elementary School. During the reporting period, we had no traffic studies that were completed during that time frame. We did have a number of capital improvement projects, which I'll briefly speak to, and if there's more questions that come up, Srinivas would be able to answer them. Those include improvements to our J Street Bridge, which was destroyed due to inclement weather. We completed the Zone 2 pavement resurfacing project, which was roughly 4.5 miles of improvements. For Center Avenue and Glacier Road, there was traffic study improvements that were completed. We completed Vine Hill pathway repairs. And then also in response to a voter initiative, the city acquired the Alhambra Highlands open space. And upon acquisition, we prepared an improvements plan to provide accessibility to that open space. There were no changes to our transportation demand management program during the reporting period. Our TDM program was adopted in 1998, and it's codified within our municipal code in Chapter 10.88. No changes to the voter-approved limit line, urban limit line during the reporting period, but I think as we're all aware, the county is initiating some changes, so in a future cycle, we may have some updates to share. And then also from a local street maintenance and improvement fund standpoint, I've included expenditures during the reporting year period. We still do have a balance available. So the recommendation for this evening, as Matt has included in the agenda, is to approve the city's GMP compliance checklist and payment of approximately $729,000 in fiscal year 2023-24. Local street maintenance and improvement funds to the city, with a second off-year payment of fiscal year 2024-25 funds in the amount of, again, about $750,000 on the 1-year anniversary of the payment. Srinivas and I are available for any questions or comments that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments from the committee? I'll just have you raise your hand if you're interested. Yes, Member Pace.
Thank you very much for your report. And I want to say, lucky you that you get to live in a city that is so well served by trains. And I want to ask you a little bit about trains and a little bit about buses. I understand the County Connection 16, 18, 19, 28, 98X, and 99X serve your area. Are there any of those that are sort of under enrolled, I guess you could say, that are in danger of going away, perhaps? I'm just curious, like, what the ridership is.
So that would be a question for County Connection. We've not been informed of any potential route closures at this time that I am aware of, but that would be a question for County Connection. We'd be happy to reach out to them and report back through Matt on that item. What I think would be important to share, because you referenced both the Amtrak station and our bus services, we are very excited that we are partnering with CCTA to transition the Amtrak station into a mobility hub. And as part of that project, which is going through the design process, there will be some fairly substantial improvements that will improve bus circulation and accessibility, hoping in turn to improve ridership.
Great, okay, good. Tomorrow night, I'm going to make a phone call to find out if I have jury duty in Martinez on Friday. I live in El Cerrito, and based on the documents you gave us, if I were to follow your description here of how to get to my jury duty if I'm called on Friday, it would be very difficult for me to get to jury duty on time with the way you describe connecting the west part of the county to Martinez. So I'd like to suggest that as it says in C110(1)E, that you coordinate with partner agencies to implement regional transit solutions, that you somehow work together with the people at the court to make it better known that the actual best way, if you're going to get from El Cerrito, Richmond to Martinez to serve jury duty, is to take the Capitol Corridor. It's way better than getting on BART, getting on County Connection, all that, because there's no direct bus from El Cerrito or Richmond, or from El Cerrito to Martinez. So I encourage you to work with the partners and you know, in bold here, it says, please allow ample time for parking as parking is limited. And I would say, encourage the court to say, please allow ample time to take the Capitol Corridor if you're coming from West County. So it's a win-win if we could get more people from West County to do jury duty, and if we can get more people to ride the Capitol Corridor.
We can definitely outreach through the court and see if with jury duty reporting requirements, they can make reference to public transportation, specifically the Amtrak station.
That'd be great. And especially you're going to be wanting to like draw a lot of attention to these improvements and this new, all these new services essentially. And then finally, I just want to say that in 6.7 under public transportation, you mention Amtrak to Richmond, but then you sort of mention going to BART because it's where there are centers of employment and entertainment, and you mentioned the cities of Walnut Creek, Oakland, San Francisco, and San Jose. And Richmond is not quite twice as large as Walnut Creek as far as population, but it's not mentioned on that list. And I'd like you to include Richmond in the future to just make better connections between the two sides of the county. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. I think we all echo that, you know, we would like to see public transit, you know, put out there and you know, especially by our public agencies. Anybody else have a comment? Yes, Member Wayne.
So what is your criteria for sidewalk improvements?
So I'm going to refer that to Srinivas since he oversees those functions.
Yeah, currently we are, wherever we are doing the projects, if we find any sidewalk gaps in the streets, so we're trying to close, but we are not doing any extensive sidewalk gap closures exclusively for the sidewalks. But wherever we find on the paving projects, yes, we're trying to close those gaps.
So I think I asked this last time. Do you guys don't do a walkability study, like walk all the sidewalks in Martinez? Do you have anybody do that?
And recently, we have completed that half-mile radius as part of the TOC, the gap analysis, and we have to address those locations whenever we do the paving.
Well, yeah, because I think if I could request, well, I live in Martinez, just to let you know, so I walk the sidewalks quite often. But, like, there's a lot of miscellaneous items on the sidewalks. And also, I noticed in Martinez, a lot of people build, you see a lot of, post boxes, people's mailboxes. They build them right in the middle of the sidewalk. What do you guys do about that when you see that?
So you mean to say mailboxes next to the sidewalk?
No, right in the middle of the sidewalk. I mean, you're walking, literally, somebody just, and it's built a 2x4 or 4x4 sometimes, just right up
Oh,
there.
okay. But I mean, whole citywide, I mean, we have to do the survey. Maybe if we find that location, we have to relocate back up the sidewalk.
Yeah, can you go a little bit, so can you explain a little bit more about your walkability that you do? And when you do, what do you look for?
Yeah, when we did that gap analysis recently, just they find out wherever the gaps in the sidewalk and wherever there is no clearance for the ADA, like a minimum 4 feet. For example, if you have to cross the light pole or any signal pole, just a 4 feet, minimum 4 feet, or else 5 feet. We're trying to get pathway, and if there are any gaps, and we're going to close those gaps. And also at the same time, recently we did a huge project. I mean, not very huge. There is a gap closure project on Morella Avenue. That's a state funded project. So we have to collect the locations wherever the gaps in the city.
Yeah, if I could recommend, you should, are you with the planning department? What's your department that you're in Caltrans?
I'm in
with
the
Martinez?
engineering department.
The what
Engineering
department? Oh, engineer, okay. Yeah, so, I would recommend that you check out the, San Francisco, I think, their community planning department. They have this walkability feasible study. And they have people, and I actually participated in this a few years ago, and they walk and what they do is, there's certain things like graffiti, how well it's walkable, the sides of the slope of the sidewalks, and every street is rated. And, like, just to give you an example, that, on Shell Avenue, which is part of the, I guess it'd be west, Shell Avenue and Pine Street, they redid the sidewalks there. And this is part of the Safe Routes to School. And I noticed the sidewalks, when they rebuilt them, they're so sloped, the curve is so sloped that people just park their cars on the sidewalks. I mean, this is just an example of, they probably built like 5 years ago. And,
Okay.
and I was like, this is the way that kids walk to school. You could check it out tomorrow if you want on your way to work but yeah, it's so sloped, and I don't know why they did that. Maybe that's the way it was before, but instead of doing it, but it just encourages people just to kind of, and I understand parking's really tough on that street because it's a narrow street. And, but yeah, just things like that, I think, something that the city of Martinez could look at. And I would really recommend checking out that city of San Francisco. That's kind of stuff you should look at when you not just the gaps, but the safety value and the safety value of the sidewalk. But thank you. That's all I
Yeah,
got.
thank you. Certainly we'll look into it.
Yes, thank you, Member Wayne. Any other questions or comments? Member Erickson.
I have a couple of questions. I noted in your presentation, the packet that you guys submitted, that you talked about how when you have new development, that your developers have to do consideration for like a complete streets, sort of for pedestrians and bicycles. And I was looking at like the Laurel Knoll development that you had mentioned, and it looked like they did a very good job of providing sidewalks with ADA acceptable ramps, but there clearly wasn't like consideration for bicyclists. So I'm just curious as to going forward, what, like, what does that look like when you say kind of they have to consider complete streets? What is if you could discuss some of your criteria for that? And then also, it sounds like you're gonna be redoing Alhambra to make it more bikeable? Is that correct? Or I'm just curious, so like, when we're talking about getting to the Amtrak station, as an example, it's really unsafe to cut, like if I were to go, instead of taking the bus, which doesn't run all that often, if I wanted to bicycle, say, from North Concord, and I realize that's Concord, but the Martinez section to get or if I'm trying to get over the bridge, which you guys have that lovely connection to get over the bridge into Benicia, but like that biking from Amtrak, like if I wanted to go from Martinez Amtrak, say, ride my bike to Benicia, that connection, are there any look at those major arterials of increasing bikeability?
Yeah, for example, on the Alhambra Avenue, now recently we did complete the design. And now we are providing like a clear bikeway, and also we are providing a green color wherever there is a conflict, and we're providing more signage and striping so that bikers and the vehicles, they can easily distinguish between these two, travel lane and the bike lane. They really were putting more efforts into it currently. Particularly, we're going to do the Alhambra Avenue from Bartola Avenue to the freeway, and that project is going to start very soon. And previously, thank you. Previously, we have striping still, but there is no green and distinguishing between the traffic and travel lane and the bike lane. So now, maybe after 6 months, you can see very clearly. So the city has divided into 5 zones. So every year we are focusing on one zone and complete everything like that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this time we are doing that zone. And last year we did the downtown. But in addition to that, we are doing several improvements like crosswalks near Amtrak stations. Recently, we did the concrete crosswalks, but it looks like a brick. Like that, those improvements were catching up. Yep.
And then again, could you address just a little bit about your criteria for like bikeability and walkability in your development sections, where it looks like those requirements? Because it seems like, again, looking specifically at a few of the developments you had, I think that you had mentioned, there was Pine Valley, there's Lowell Knolls, and then there was like another development, and they look like they provided like really nice sidewalks, but bikeability wasn't considered.
So Srinivas can provide more information, but I can share that both of the projects, while they were built during this reporting period, they were approved decades earlier. And so it wasn't something that went through the recent review process under current criteria. But Srinivas can kind of talk about kind of the review that engineering would do for current projects.
Oh, that's okay. Just like, so from now on, they'll kind of be better consideration.
Yeah. And I can't go into great detail, but one of those projects was subject to litigation for many years and outside the city's control.
Got it. Member Salcedo.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a couple questions. I know some of the members talked about transportation, and mine is specifically more on the Amtrak station. And I just want to understand perhaps how you're all thinking about leveraging the proximity to the Amtrak station to align with housing growth. And I think there's a Senate bill coming up too, right? Senate Bill 79 kind of touches on that.
No, I can speak a little bit. So first I'll start with Senate Bill 79. Senate Bill 79 does not apply to Contra Costa County. It doesn't apply to any jurisdiction in Contra Costa County. It does apply to jurisdictions that have a higher number of high-frequency transit stops, including Alameda County, San Francisco, amongst others. In terms of items that the city has done to incentivize housing production, we've done a lot. We've reduced parking requirements. We have created objective design and development standards to streamline review processes. We have updated our codes for when a project is not a by right approval. It can be handled through a faster review process. So as an example, we had a 4-unit project in our downtown that was just approved by me as zoning administrator, not going through a formal commission process. We have developed our set of micro-unit regulations. Our micro-unit regulations allow for smaller residential units and would not be subject to density requirements. It's what we would refer to as form-based construction, where they still would need to comply with height, setbacks, standards such as that, but as many units as you can make work in that space, you can accommodate. We are in the process of reviewing our development impact fees and looking at ways to reduce those costs in terms of to incentivize further production. We developed our own density bonus regulations that go above and beyond state law, allowing for increased development. We have created our own development incentive and community benefit program, which allows for projects to deviate from certain development standards if certain public benefits are provided as part of the project, again, as another tool to allow for increased development. I guess the last thing that I would mention related to that, we are going through the Surplus Land Act process where we've offered 6 publicly owned properties up for potential purchase or lease. 2 of those are in the downtown in close proximity to the Amtrak station.
You've been busy. Okay, thank you. One last question regarding ADUs. I guess, how does the city track conversion rates from ADU permit issuance to completion?
So from ADU permit issuance to completion. So that is something that is done through our annual progress reports. So we're required to report to the state each year for planning permit entitlement, building permit issuance, and building permit finalizing or certificate of occupancy. And as part of that process each year, it's reported for the type of project it is, if it's single family, if it's an ADU, if it's a multifamily project, and dates for each of those 3 timelines.
Okay, I was curious about that. Thank you.
All right, Member Miller?
Yes, thank you, and good evening, gentlemen. I have 2 questions. They're fairly straightforward. One of the questions is about the Amare development. I just noticed I didn't see that there was any kind of traffic study. I'm going to make a comment about that in a second. And also, the one item that you had listed among the projects that you kind of had coming up in the boilerplate was the downtown parking study. Now, I guess the thing I want to ask is, I don't know much about the Amare development, but it could have been one of these projects that had bonus density and some kind of approvals there. That would eliminate CEQA review, which would eliminate your ability to regulate the parking, and also maybe make traffic study irrelevant because you can't refuse it for a traffic study. I just kind of wanted to understand why you didn't do a traffic study, and is this downtown parking project kind of the result of like, crap, we're getting more density and we can't require parking and it's going to require some out-of-the-box thinking?
So 2 different issues. So the Amare project, again, before our time here, it did include using state density bonus law to limit the city's ability to review the project. In regards to your second question about the downtown parking study, Martinez has, through the years, had a downtown parking study, that was done multiple times. Circumstances have changed through the years. As the county seat, we have a lot of services that are impactful from a parking standpoint, both having the courthouse, which was
Like
mentioned
jury
earlier,
duty.
for jury duty, having the administrative offices for the county located in our downtown. And as part of the parking study that was completed, it indicated that we do not have a parking supply issue. We have a parking management issue. So it really is ensuring that people can find and locate where parking is and where it's available. So as our initial implementation actions that we're working on currently that we've obtained funding for, we will be working to replace the parking meters to allow for the opportunity for dynamic pricing in the future, so we can have the spaces that are in higher demand be more expensive and to incentivize people to use the less desirable spaces at a cheaper rate. We also, as part of those technology upgrades, are looking at the viability of allowing for individuals to pay by their phone, by app, text to pay, and other ways. Again, to open up kind of flexibility. As part of the technology, it will also have the ability to locate in real time what parking spaces are in use and which ones are not.
Yeah, that's actually, I was gonna go there and you already went there now. Yeah, if you've got adequate supply, but people aren't going to the supply, then, again, that magic thinking, it'd be awesome if while you were navigating into the area, you could bring up on a thing that says, this parking lot's full, this parking lot's full, but this one has 3 spaces and this one has 8 spaces. I mean, I always valued, when you go into like a mall or something and there are 300, parking spaces available on this floor. Take that and then extrapolate it to the entire downtown area if there was a way to. Of course, that would require some sensors and stuff, but.
So that's the intention of the direction we're going.
Right,
I think the other thing that would be important to mention is, as part of the grant for implementation of our downtown parking study, we also are going to be installing a comprehensive wayfinding signage program, which will help people locate parking lots, Amtrak station, and key points of interest.
That sounds great. Actually, I look forward to seeing kind of what technology choices are made there. We could maybe take a few tips from that ourselves. Thank you very much.
Member James.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I was curious, so I used to live in Martinez for a number of years, and I know there was a lot of talk about developing the marina and even putting in a ferry that would take residents from Martinez to San Francisco. I was curious, it's maybe early days, but I've heard there's been some more discussion around that, and I was curious if you could share some updates on that front or any related news.
Yeah, so I can share a little bit of an update. The updates are not for the reporting periods, just to qualify what I'm about to say. So kind of twofold. I think the exciting portion is in December of last year, the City Council entered into an exclusive negotiating agreement with Tucker Sadler Architects. It's a San Diego-based development firm for a comprehensive revitalization of our waterfront, which will include potentially multiple hotels, a conference center, retail spaces, new facilities for some of like our yacht club and our Sea Scouts programs that are out there. There also will be a comprehensive rebuilding of the marina to match. We recently just rebuilt our fishing pier, and a series of transportation related improvements, trails amongst them. There also is a requirement for a secondary access point to the waterfront and ferry service. The challenge that we have is there really needs to be more of a there, there needs to be more people there for ferry service to really be viable. And so that potentially will be an important part if the project is approved of setting up the city where ferry service could be restored in the future. The other thing that is important to share, the city of Martinez, along with a handful of other cities in Contra Costa County, partnered with CCTA, and CCTA completed a ferry service feasibility study, and kind of evaluating the pros and cons of bringing ferry service and the obstacles that each jurisdiction would run into. And the main impediment, which I kind of alluded to for Martinez, is we need more people, but B, our infrastructure at our marina and waterfront is at a state of disrepair right now. And so we need to ensure that it's rebuilt in order to be able to provide ferry service in the future.
Thank you. And it sounds like it's very early days, but have there been discussions about what that timeline would look like for revitalizing the waterfront?
So what I can say for that is our exclusive negotiating agreement is a 2-year period, which would be for our process to work with the developer to go through the planning process and potentially entitle the project. I can't say more than that on timing right now.
And Matt, I'd be curious to look at that ferry feasibility study, if you could share that out. Thank you.
Sure.
Um,
Can I
Member
follow up
Wade.
one quick question that another member had? About the question was about access from Amtrak to the Benicia Martinez Bridge, and also that's basically downtown. And I know that Marina Vista is a road that is the most direct way, and I know that's basically going through the oil refinery there. But has there been talk about, because Pacheco, there is a bicycle lane, and a lot of cyclists do go through Marina Vista, but just as many go through Shell Avenue, which there is actually room to put in a bike lane, both directions. Has that ever been any talk about that, putting in a bike lane specifically from Pacheco to the bridge on Shell Avenue?
That we had to check, sir, and I don't think so far.
So Martinez doesn't have a bicycle master plan, right?
Yes, I had to check that one too.
Yeah.
But as far as, yeah.
And, since, Martinez is actually starting to become like, almost like I say, a Danville with the two bridges, Carquinez and Benicia both having bike lanes. You have a lot of cyclists that do that circle there. And also you got the Amtrak station. Definitely, I'd recommend you should put that on the list of Martinez doing a bicycle master plan. Thank you.
Yep, okay.
What I think is important to add related to that area, I alluded to the plans in partnership with CCTA to have the Amtrak station converted into a mobility hub. As part of that project, there are some bike infrastructure improvements, pretty significant ones that are planned as part of that project. Not necessarily going much further out, but the immediate area surrounding the Amtrak station. But duly noted and agree on your other comment.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, any other questions, comments? Yes, Member Pace.
Sorry, I just had one more question. I read in your report that the city completed the construction of bus stop improvements in various locations. Can you just briefly describe to me what those, were they pads, shelters, benches, street furniture? What was it?
But I have to correct those locations and I can get back to you. Maybe
Great,
through Matt.
thank you.
But these things are done, as Michael Cass mentioned, we both weren't here that time,
Okay.
but we colored the location.
All
Second.
right, understandable,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, excellent presentation. Sounds like a lot of exciting things happening in Martinez. It's really up and coming, and I'm really excited to hear about the waterfront development. I think that's going to be a really big revitalization of downtown. Okay, are there any anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item for this presentation?
No public comment, written or virtual.
All right, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the Measure J, growth compliant Growth Management Program for 2023-2024 for City of Martinez in the amount of $729,685.
I will.
Thank you, Member Wayne, our Martinez representative. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Member Pace. Emily, could you please conduct a roll call?
Member Ash,
Aye.
Member Erickson,
Aye.
Member Everidge,
Yes.
Member James,
Aye.
Member Miller,
Aye.
Member Pace,
Yes.
Member Patel,
Yes.
Member Stark,
Yes.
Member Wayne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Esselstego,
Aye.
Chair Lovejoy. All right, motion passes unanimously with members Bankert, Carr, Saunders, Shakirin, and Vidantham absent.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is an informational item that will be presented by Matt Kelly.
One moment, folks, okay, this is the latest. Talk amongst yourselves.
Emily, you're pretty good at following up and asking for more information. There was a lot of follow-up questions in there that they didn't have. Do you just hope that they send it? Do you, tell us like the process that works, and then that'll give Matt enough time.
So Matt will work with each city or town, the jurisdiction, on any follow-up items to get answers to your questions from there. And then once we receive that information, then that's when I provide it.
So much turnover in all of these cities. Could be that.
There's 11 interim city managers in the two-county area like today. Like there's,
In Clayton, it was turnover. I mean, it was.
there's a lot of cities are having either structural budget deficits right now or are just proactively cutting because their forecasts are down. So I know like a city like Walnut Creek hasn't let people go, but they have an 11% vacancy rate that they're not going to fill, which is really high. Most cities typically operate at like 5%. Pinole has an interim city manager and they have like 4 openings, and there's nobody applying because of the price, the cost of living. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
They also get promoted and move a lot. I mean, to bigger cities, or even to higher jobs within cities, right? I know somebody who was at the Walnut Creek Planning is now here, but he was in 4 different cities in 12 years because he kept getting promoted.
Promotions, yeah. I mean, I
Did we
would say.
stall enough for you, Matt?
You sure did.
Yeah. I mean,
But I like the conversation.
I've been through at least 3 of these, and I do believe this year there's been a much higher incidence of this is a whole new crew, or we weren't here during that time, so. That's a good pattern observation on your part.
I think this is a good segue into growth management checklist and how we might change it and maybe make it easier for people who are newer to this process.
That's why we're here today. But no, I appreciate that discussion because we, as staff here, we see the turnover going on in our 19 cities and towns. And there is a lot of movement. I mean, we see the same people go from city to city to city, even just within the county, or sometimes they'll pop up to Vallejo and then come back down, or, yeah, so we really see it, and it affects us not just on the checklist, but in all other facets of what we do. So I appreciate that you appreciate that, but that should not hinder this committee in its ability to find out what's going on in the cities. So, yeah, if you ever want to dig in or ask, further questions or have them follow up, that is something that Emily and we reach out to them after the meeting and make sure they kind of respond with the questions at least we've jotted down. So, yeah, I wasn't keeping good notes, but I will go back and listen to the meeting to make sure I request the right items from them. Hopefully, they're at home. Hopefully, they were taking better notes. Okay, so yes, back to the checklist. So you just saw a checklist. Now we're going to talk about checklists, but not a specific checklist, about the checklist. So, yeah, this is for new folks, but also for those of you who've seen a lot of checklists and have an idea of what you think the checklist should look like. So first, I'm going to just walk through the new checklist. And then once we've walked through that, and pointing out kind of the things that you should be looking at when you're reviewing a checklist, although that probably would have helped you, an hour ago. And then we'll talk about what you'd like to see in terms of, say, what I'm thinking of doing is developing a template presentation that I just make available to everybody, and it has the items that you guys want. We don't have a lot of ability to change the checklist itself. That's something that our board, to amend the growth management program, has to go through our board, and it's rarely done, but it can be done. So if there's something that this committee thinks needs to be added, then we can certainly go down that path. But what I'm focused on today is the new checklist and developing a template for this committee so that you guys are getting the type of information you want from the city and aren't having to ask for follow-up information. And then when they come in, they are prepared to answer the types of questions that you tend to have, and I like it that, that you guys tend to ask the cities kind of this same general questions if they haven't covered it in their presentation, and that there's certain folks that have certain themed questions, like, yes, that is great. We lost who was our ADU person? We had someone who...
It was the representative from San Ramon. He moved on to be
Yes.
on one of their councils.
You're right. And he was the ADU guy. And so, and that really got, I think, this committee kind of more interested in what was going on with ADUs, and now it's kind of a standard question. So those are the types of things that I'll get to at the end of this presentation. Turn on your mic, sorry.
You guys should be double checking that, but as a citizen, and that's why it's great that when you do get people, I think it's best to get people from all different walks of life, even if you don't know anything about transportation, this is our chance as citizens to say something. And I mean, I'll look at it, but then I'd like to go back and look at Google Maps and look at the city and say, what can I ask? What would a citizen want,
Yeah.
Because, I'm sure you guys, like I said, you guys got accounts that make sure that they're paying their amount. To me, that's not an interest to me. I'll be upfront. But I'm just here. I'm looking at this. We're a citizen advisory committee. It's right in the name. And this is one of the few chances that you get a chance as a citizen to try to put your foot on it. And, and then hopefully we bring up something and then he brings it up to the board and then they write a letter or something. And then that's how you get a little change. But yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and our Martinez member, he's the one who kind of spearheaded a conversation about Amtrak and the Capitol Corridor last year, and that resulted in our board writing a very pointed letter to CCJPA and A few months later, they lowered their price for rides between Martinez and Richmond, just like we asked, or just like you asked. So, yeah, and we can't, they didn't call us back and say, hey, thanks for that suggestion, we just changed our policy because of you. But I have a feeling this committee had a lot to do with that. So, yes, you guys, as non-transportation, well, some of you are professionals in transportation, but you don't have to be. So this is your opportunity to come in and really find out what is going on behind the scenes at the cities, whether it's your city or not. So, yeah. So feel free to ask me plenty of questions today so that we can get the right information out of the cities. Sorry, there's so much to talk about. You know, when the checklists do come in to me, I do review them. I get them to the point where I make sure they're compliant, you know, but I rely on you guys to go above and beyond, because they shouldn't, compliant to me isn't enough. It's enough to get their return to source fund, because that's what the measure says. But you are here to really, you know, make sure they're going above and beyond just the basic requirements.
Well, and some members of the council, specifically of this board, have lived experience of some pain points and are willing, of course, to ask, like, is anything being done about this? So we're either raising something to visibility that's not known, or we're harping on something that is difficult and emphasizing that, yeah, we expect that something will be done about it, right? So.
And staff appreciates that too, because those are comments we can't always make to the cities. Yeah. So let's get into it. Let's see. Yeah, so what is the Measure J Growth Management Program? That is the foundation of this committee and of the measure. Measure J would most likely not have passed without the growth management program. So it was first there with Measure C in 1988. It was a very novel idea. It was then strengthened and readopted under Measure J. Starting in 2009 is when Measure J came online. So the growth management program seeks to assure that new development, both residential and commercial, pays for the facilities required to meet the demands resulting from that growth. So it's really looking at that transportation land use interaction and making sure that one does not tip the other out of balance. Generally, it's the development tipping the transportation network out of balance. And under Measure C, it wasn't just about new transportation facilities that resulted from the growth. It was about police, fire, stormwater, you know, all utilities. It still is about that, but we focused it on transportation in Measure J. But really, if you're having to extend roadways to meet, you know, for new development, you're also having to extend all those other services, whether it's utilities or public safety. So the GMP requires cooperative transportation and land use planning among local jurisdictions. It seeks to support land use patterns that make more efficient use of the system, consistent with local general plans. Usually general plans are generally pretty visionary, but they don't always, aren't always deployed that way. So consistency with general plan is generally kind of a higher bar. And the GMP supports infill and redevelopment in existing urban and brownfield areas, reducing the need to grow and really to protect our green fields and our important agricultural areas, especially in eastern Contra Costa County. So what is the GMP checklist? Well, it's the mechanism for determining local compliance with the GMP. So it is submitted by all 19 cities and towns and the county biennially. It's one of my favorite words, which means every other year. It's reviewed by this group for recommendation of compliance and transmittal of of local streets and roads maintenance funds. And, you know, our board does rely on your recommendation. They don't receive a presentation from staff. So they rely on your recommendation to approve the transmittal of the funds. And just a reminder, that is 18% of Measure J. That goes back to the cities through the checklist each year. And some parts of the county, west, central, and southwest, all get an additional 2.09% of the measure. And that is done every 2 years. So you see each city's checklist every 2 years. That one checklist approval releases 2 fiscal years of those LSM funds back to the cities. And the previous checklist, which is the current checklist, calendar years 2022 and 2023, allocated over $47 million back to the cities and towns and county. You know, hopefully your local streets and roads and trails have benefited from that.
Matt, if I could just pound the table about one point, just so that we all kind of understand how this works. It's very much like, and this question actually came up last night in my reappointment, but we work very much like, kind of like a planning commission in the sense that we are an advisory body to the CCTA itself. The CCTA has, the top level board has the authority to release the funds. We give them advice on whether or not to that. But you were kind of harping on that. But you're kind of emphasizing that they do care about what our advice is. I just wanted to kind of highlight that, where we are an advisory committee.
By definition, we are an advisory body to the board. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, we have that is our role as an advisory body, but it is a respected role by the board. And, you know, if you say a checklist doesn't go through, they will back you up. Unless, you know, I should clarify that. You know, so we'll when we get to that point, we'll go over it. But yes, they
would give it a lot of scrutiny.
It would get additional scrutiny. They may ask for the checklist to come back to this committee, things like that. So I'm just going to go through the items and just talk about, you know, kind of the importance of each item and what we're really asking of the local jurisdictions, because it's not always real clear from the questions. So action plans. What is an action plan? An action plan, they're technically called the action plans for routes of regional significance. There are 5 of them prepared around the county: East, West, Central, La Miranda, and Tri-Valley. So we split the Southwest up into 2 areas. And the Tri-Valley portion of Contra Costa County, which is the San Ramon Valley, Danville and San Ramon, does their action plan with Pleasanton, Dublin, and Livermore. Just because that part of the county, you can't, there may be a county line, but transportation knows no, you know, boundaries, and that kind of 580, 680, BART and everything down there, that's what the San Ramon Valley that's their transportation system. So we do a separate plan with Alameda County down there, which is pretty unique. Considering Alameda County doesn't do their own action plans, we do one for part of their county. So what we're asking of the jurisdiction, I'll say a little bit more about the action plans. The goal is to, so for these routes of regional significance, so it's the freeways and it's all kind of the major arterials, is to establish a vision, goals, objectives for those routes that really are providing access to different parts of the county, that are connecting our cities and connecting us to other parts of the region, that you've got objectives for these routes, that they're multimodal objectives, and then you prepare they generate a list of actions for each route. And so what they're reporting on is the actions that they've implemented since the last action plan. So actions are basically a list of projects or, actions that the council may take or policies in order to achieve those objectives. So the cities kind of provide the progress they've made on implementing the action plan. Circulating environmental documents. So part of that land use transportation analysis is that when there is a development, and I'd stepped out of the room, but someone was asking about traffic studies and the fact that Martinez hadn't prepared a traffic study as part of, during the reporting period. Yeah, Member Miller. And
Because it's a requirement on the checklist.
it is a
It
requirement.
says for everything that
but
generates more than 100.
net new peak hour trips. He's got it. 100 net new peak hour trips. So, and basically that's during the peak hour. It takes a pretty good sized apartment building, probably around 100 units to generate that amount, or a small grocery store, smaller sized hotel, things like that. So something, a major development, but on the grand scheme of things, it has, it has to be a certain threshold. Otherwise they'd be doing very significant traffic studies for things that really aren't generating that many new trips. So, and then those need to be circulated to all of their neighbors, not only within their subregion, but the neighboring subregions. So this is very unique within the state of California that that a jurisdiction is required to circulate and receive feedback and incorporate that feedback. So there's a process for that. Each of the regional RTPCs, which I'll talk about in a minute, track the projects, and sometimes they provide comments, sometimes they don't. It's really up to them. So has the city analyzed the impact of general plan amendments? We consider a general plan amendment anything that's not in our model. So anything that's kind of a new major development that we don't know about. So it's basically a major project or an actual amendment of the general plan. Have they approved projects consistent with action plans? So that's just saying, are you, actively approving projects that are part of the action plan and that meet the objectives of the action plan? And then have you followed the RTPC, the Regional Transportation Planning Committee, General Plan Amendment Review Procedure? So we have a set of technical procedures that are part of the Growth Management Program that lay out the whole review procedure that they're supposed to go through, the circulation process, all of that. And they're just basically indicating, did they have any projects that met the threshold, and then did they go through the process? Item 2 is called Development Mitigation Program. Basically, CCTA and the measure requires that each jurisdiction is participating in 2 transportation fee mitigation programs. So these are programs that when development comes about, when a development is proposed, that there is both a fee program that the city or town has developed, and one that the sub-regional fee program. So the RTPC, those sub-regions, they each have a fee program. So when a developer goes into Clayton, they are paying into the Clayton local fee and the Transpac Central County fee. So it is a really good way of funding mitigations, and these mitigations are a lot of the time are actions from the action plans it's getting more difficult to do with all of the streamlining and the legislation in Sacramento.
Yeah, this is friction.
Yeah, but
This is friction.
this is outside of that. they may have gotten their development approved through the streamlining process, but they still have to participate in the fee programs. And if they, oh yeah, so this just talking about a local program and a regional program. And the little screenshot graphic on the right just shows what a typical fee program looks like. It has a list of land uses, whether it's hotel, residential, senior housing, has a typical trip rate, and then the cost per trip. So it's, developers don't mind it only because it is reliable. They know what to expect. Developers just don't like things being surprises, exactly. So item 3, housing options. So we're not asking for anything, well, generally we're not asking for anything here that isn't already required by the state. So first we're asking, have they reported on their housing production at all income levels in its housing element? So first they must have a housing element, but then are they submitting annual reports to the state housing, HCD, Housing and Community Development? So if they aren't submitting those progress reports, they are out of compliance with the state and by proxy out of compliance with the growth management program. So that's why those, you know, we're not asking for them to do any additional housing. We just want to see those reports and know what that production looks like. And then have they addressed how new development will affect the transportation system? And have they adopted policies into their approval process that support all modes? So it is required to be in their circulation element. So it is in their books. So, yeah. Right, right.
I think Richmond, or maybe one else, maybe El Sobrante, one of them, I definitely heard things like, you know, we don't have a lot of parking here. We've implemented a bus state, you know, we've increased bus service to this particular housing element, and, or this multi-family, you know, residence. So I think some of them have, but you're right, it's probably all over the board.
It could. Yeah, we do have kind of a template for them to follow, but yes, they can, each jurisdiction is unique because of its, you know, makeup and its location and characteristics. But it still is required that they have adopted these policies, and if they've adopted these policies, they should be implementing them. CCTA doesn't weigh in on every development, and generally that's why we set up this circulation process, this review process, so it is being done by others. So we can't control what types of comments come in, but if you're aware of a situation where they are, you know, specifically deciding not to include multimodal access into new developments, then that is something that, you know, the authority could weigh in on if it's brought to our attention.
Matt, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So the first bullet, this one reported on the reasonable progress in providing housing opportunities for all income levels. This one's, I've seen many presentations where we get that table on the right, and to me, there's not very much progress, and so when we're looking at this, is it reported on the reasonable progress and they define what reasonable is, or are we able to say, hey, there is not a lot of progress here? What happens at the end of this period when you don't meet your goals.
Yeah,
It's
so
new-
that word reasonable, I'm not sure where that came from, but it really, they're reporting on their progress. They shouldn't be leaving anything out. This should be what they're actually producing.
Yeah.
However, every jurisdiction has, different income levels that seem to pencil out better in their communities. Like we've seen some lately who've been doing mostly affordable housing, but then there's certain parts of the counties where it seems to be all market rate. So really, this information, what they need to do is meet the RENA allocation, or that's their goal to really the exercise for them is to zone for the RENA
Right.
the RENA goal. So they've had to zone for those 1,300 units. So they've presumably done that. They've done that if they have a approved housing element. What hasn't happened is the developers haven't showed up.
Yeah, so
Right.
they don't really have control.
And so they aren't penalized for that by the state or by us, but by providing this information to you, you can certainly inquire as to what is going on in their community and why they've had such a hard time, meeting the opportunities in the different income levels. So why we can't deny them their return to source funds or say they're out of compliance for not producing more, very low income, we certainly can try and find out what the reasoning for that is and, obviously make suggestions.
I mean, there's a big bad bear that's going to knock on the door, I mean, much bigger than us, if they're out of compliance.
Yes.
I guess, I think where you were hitting at from this first bullet was kind of like, or what I interpreted it, tell me if I'm wrong, was if people are not willfully, if people are willfully not engaging the state in a good faith effort to participate in the RENA process, then we will also deny them their Measure J funds. It's not we're going to make sure that they are checking all the boxes, because the RENA allocation and the state monitoring progress against it, they seem to at least be shouting from Sacramento that they will make it felt if whatever targets are not met or whatnot. So it's not really our place to, have they made reasonable progress? That's up for the people who write the laws in Sacramento, but are they engaged, or are they willfully kind of throwing the finger up at the state and not participating in the progress? So are they not reporting, not participating?
Right? Yeah. We rely on the state to be the enforcer,
Yeah.
but if
I
you're
thought
out
Big
of
Bang Bear
compliance with
was
the state.
appropriate for
you're-
California, but,
Yeah, your LSM funds are at risk, so.
One more clarifying question. Is their requirement just to rezone their city to meet those projections? So they've met their requirement, and whether or not they make progress in developing those houses is not, there is no big bad bear. on
No,
that
actually,
because they've
the
met that.
state projects an expectation that not only will the zoning occur, but if you build it, they will come. And if they're supposedly supposed to evaluate around the mid-mark whether reasonable progress is being made in that RENA cycle, and if not, there's all kinds of, I think, personal opinion, some of the numbers that have been shoved down on the cities we'll see if there's a mass observation of lots of places not meeting the numbers that were thrown at them, but at least the initial sounds made out of the Capitol were that if you don't make progress, then we may have to take over, your planning commissions or whatever and make this stuff happen ourselves. We may have to take ministerial control.
One more
Member Miller.
suggestion then maybe, because there's the shift in what's required for RENA and the landscape that they're in now. As part of maybe the information that they share with us, could they include a chart that has the total number of units broken down however, this requirement and, since, because it would be interesting to see like if the rate has actually gone up or flat, that trend would be just interesting for us to understand because transportation is so tied to housing and the issues that we're gonna have with funding transportation. If we don't fix the housing issues, we will never have a sales tax big enough to fix our transportation issues.
Yeah, Matt, I'm wondering along these lines, is there a way for us to, I don't know if it's within this table or an expansion of it, to compare apples to apples between these cities month in and month out? And, they've all talked about like ADUs, and look, some cities like Lafayette was doing better because they have a lot of lots and he explained it, right? We have a lot of lots that are bigger here, and it allowed more people to do it. But I think there's no way I don't know what the answer is, but if there's a way we could help see like how are they doing comparatively on it, that would be helpful.
And
Are you saying kind of like demographically too? Like you would kind of expect the Lawa, Marinda area to have similar ADUs because they'd had similar zoning, whereas I wouldn't expect, say, El Cerrito and, Richmond to have, like you'd almost see like a more dense housing kind of thing.
Well, the state set the targets. So it's basically, are they making motions toward those targets?
So just to clarify, is this something you think would be kind of a year-end summary that we would collect from all the submittals, or is this something that would be on a checklist by checklist basis? I think it's sounds like something staff would have to prepare.
Yeah, I'm almost thinking it's like an ongoing thing, and that actually is not intended to create more work for you. But if it's almost like a Google Sheet, so we could be seeing it updated every month as new checklists come in. So we could say, here's 10 things, fill this out, but we could see the cities that have come in the last couple of months within that cycle, instead of waiting till the end of the year. Kind of almost like a Google Doc, but for like us with a standard form for all these cities within it, a standard.
And here, this is kind of an interesting thing. I don't know. I assume that the jurisdictions themselves are only required to report to the state RENA annually on their progress. So getting anything more frequent than annual, we're basically putting an additional load beyond. I mean, the cities themselves may not be compiling the numbers for their own jurisdictions any more frequently than that for reporting. So I don't know that, I don't think we're going to necessarily get anything more frequent than the state is, but maybe if the process is such that we can pull down from the state, from the RENA, I don't know what the official organization that they feed up into would be, but whatever oversight probably maintains some sort of data, and if we can plug into that data and we could even just link over to it if we can, for certain jurisdictions so that we can see what progress they're making or whatnot. I don't know. I'm thinking out loud.
I can do some investigation, see what's available from the HCD website, because they do compile information there, so that might be a good source of it. I don't mind compiling the information, especially if it's just coming in one checklist at a time, but if it's already available, I'll check into that.
It'd be nice if they have something that could be downloaded that then we can strip.
By county or something.
Yeah, exactly. Look at it how we want.
I also want to add in, Matt, and this goes for the transportation improvements and housing, they need to include maps. Because, I don't know every city in and out like I do maybe 8 of them, but like, where are they talking about these new developments occurring? How does it impact the streets? Like, I'm trying to look on my phone, but if they add 2 or 3 slides on every housing project, like, it's easy to pull it in from Google Maps for them.
I 100% agree. I spend most of my meeting on Google Maps, just following along what's happening. So I like that suggestion. So so feel free to bring those up now. I also have time at the end to kind of talk about what you'd like to see in the presentation. So yeah, these are great suggestions. Love it. So I'm going to move on to item 4. Here's those traffic impact reports. So really, we're asking, has the jurisdiction conducted a traffic impact study for projects generating 100 net new peak hour trips? And that has to be done consistent with our technical procedures. So we lay out everything that the city or the consultant working for the city needs to know. It's consistent, it's done the same way in all 19 cities, towns in the county. So, you know, we have a good, when developers come in, when the traffic consultants, they all know how these are supposed to be prepared, how they're supposed to analyze the impacts to the action plans and the routes of regional significance. So, yeah, so if you ever have questions about a study with staff, please ask them, because it is required if they meet that threshold.
Matt?
Yeah.
Can I just ask real quickly about that? Do traffic consultants now, have they changed their sort of algorithm or whatever you call it, that now that so many people work at home, and you know, that's change that's come about in the last 4 or 5 years?
So I guess our models have changed. So our models have a higher work from home rate that's assumed. So the model is what the consultant is using to, you know, they put the characteristics of the development in and then run the model. Yeah, so we've updated our model just recently with higher work from home rates.
Okay, thanks.
Based on the last census.
I'm sure this is self-explanatory. It's probably in the name. But tell me exactly what 100 net new peak hour trips means.
Yes. So let's say that empty lot across the street, a new office building goes in, similar to this. Because it's a new land use, there's nothing there, bare pavement there before. Any trip associated with that project would be considered net new. So the peak hour part of that, so that's the net new. The peak hour is, and this is kind of harkening back to pre-pandemic, because our peak hours are kind of all merged into one now. But peak hours focusing on the morning commute and the evening commute. So during either the AM or PM peak, is the project expected to generate 100 trips. So let's say there was a restaurant in that lot, what they would do is look at what the restaurant was generating, and then that restaurant is torn down and the office built, or let's say a couple of restaurants are built on top of it, replaced it. You would look at the difference between what that one restaurant was producing and then what the 3 restaurants that replaced it are producing. And if there's a 100 net new trips on top of that, then they would be required. But if it turned out that with the old development and the new development, there's still only a net of 75 trips, they would not be required to do the traffic study. Did that make sense?
And I'd add to that too, just when you convert, a lot of office buildings or office parks are being converted to housing of different types right now. That actually reduces the peak hours. So I know that was critical in Walnut Creek of a recent builder's remedy project going in, taking out 10 office buildings and replacing it with 412 townhomes. And they didn't actually have to do it because they're reducing the net peak hours of that timeline.
Yeah, that's a great new example of how it's. And I'll just say there's a engineer's handbook that has trip rates for every single type of land use that exists. So they've gone and surveyed, what does a medical office produce? What does a senior housing produce? What does hotel produce? And some of those land uses really don't generate that many peak hour trips. Most of their trips, like a hotel, it's kind of spread out over the day. So a lot of times hotels don't even meet the threshold unless they're pretty large. So item 5, cooperation in multi-jurisdictional planning. This is what a major part of the growth management program and this is what member Ash loves, that we're forcing people to work together with their neighbors. So our staff and elected officials regularly participating in the RTPC meetings. So the RTPCs, those are our sub-regional folks. They have both staff, a technical advisory committee, and a board of elected officials, and they all have to be engaged. If a city isn't participating, they can be out of compliance. Has the city worked with the regional planning committee to develop and implement the action plans? So that's where the action plans are developed, is at the RTPCs. So that's one of their major functions. Has the city used the authority's travel demand model to analyze general plan amendments and developments exceeding the threshold? So that was the what's in the model that I was telling you, like the work from home rates. We have a model that we've spent a lot of time preparing, so it can be available to analyze these projects. Basically, if the model's been run, we ask for the input, like what were your inputs into the model that you analyzed? So we get a copy of those. Item 6, capital improvement program. Really, all we want to see is, we require a 5-year. However, there is an alternative. If 5-year is too frequent for the jurisdiction, they can do a 7-year, but there's some caveats that I don't have at the top of my mind. But anyway, I've never had someone propose a 7-year. Most cities just do a 5-year routinely. So we ask for the latest one. So where, this last checklist was, they always talk about the reporting period of 2022 and 2023. We ask for the latest CIP. And a CIP is basically each city's project list. Like, what are the projects they plan to be working on over the next 5 years? And we really only need to see the transportation component. We usually get all 300 pages, but really all we care about is the transportation component, because we want to see what's in the pipeline. That's something that you guys should have access to, something you can ask staff about when they're here. Checklist item 7, transportation systems management program. So this is an outdated terminology. It's now referred to as transportation demand management program. But it all means the same thing. It's basically a program that seeks to promote and provide alternatives to the single occupant vehicle. We have 511 Contra Costa, now being rebranded as 511 CCTA, because we do operate it, and we want people to know that we operate it. As part of 511 CCTA, we are doing van pools, car pools. Those were really popular before the pandemic, aren't as popular today, but they still function in certain parts around the county, especially for large employers. Guaranteed ride home. So if you participate in a carpool, if you ride BART to work, you can sign up for a guaranteed ride home. So if something happens to you or your family, you can get home as soon as possible without waiting for that van pool, without waiting for the train. You get a Uber or a taxi ride home immediately, or to wherever you need to go. There's student transit passes, e-bike rebates. Anyway, and just as a teaser, we are getting that presentation from 511 at our May meeting. So we'll get all the good overview of what they're working on. But anyways, this is something we require that every city has an ordinance on the books that they are participating in a local TSM or TDM program. It's also required for all employers in the county of 50 or more employees. Yeah, some are better than others. If you work within Contra Costa Center, they have a great, I'll say, have a great TDM manager who, if you walk through any of the buildings here, you'll see information about all the programs. My Transit gets paid for each month, not by CCTA, but by our TDM manager in the Contra Costa Center. So item 8, adoption of a voter-approved urban limit line. This is what most people think about when they think of the growth management program, the urban limit line, that this imaginary line around all of our cities within which all new growth must take place. So really that's what it's there for. The county has an adopted ULL, which 16 of our jurisdictions have adopted. The counties, San Ramon, Pittsburgh, and Antioch have adopted their own ULL. There's 3 options for what folks can do. Those are the 2 primary options, either adopting the county or adopting their own. But as I mentioned earlier, this is what keeps the development away from the green fields, preserving that valuable agricultural land, and reduces the need for new infrastructure, especially transportation, and seeks to focus development around existing infrastructure, especially, transit.
Just to note that the county urban limit line is going to be up for voter approval on the June ballot. So I'm not saying what to do. I'm just saying, check it out, read for it, learn a little bit more, but I think it's the first time, Matt, in 20 years it's up.
I believe it, let's see, 2006, I think.
Yeah, so 20 years.
Yeah. And they did a mid-year analysis in 2016 just to make sure the urban limit line could still had the capacity to handle the growth that we're expecting. And that was determined by the county that there is plenty of room within the urban limit line. So let's see, what's the second bullet? That's basically just if the jurisdiction has made any changes to its urban limit line, that can be done for developments smaller than 30 acres. It's rarely done. Or if a new referendum, so a newly voter-approved ULL for that jurisdiction. So if they make changes, they have to report those out. But if they have made changes, they've already come to our planning committee and board to kind of make the case for the changes. And we always make a determination on whether we think it would be a violation of the growth management program when they come in. A lot of times they'll have cases where a property that was outside the urban limit line relied on an easement to access the property, and then because of another property, they lost their access and they need a easement beyond the urban limit line. So in cases like that, we make a pretty pretty liberal determination. It's really when there's those large developments outside the urban line that we make a determination against it. So that will be on your ballot in June. That will impact the cities who adopt the county's urban limit line, but it won't put them out of compliance. They're still in compliance. We're working through our legal counsel to make sure everybody stays in compliance on their urban limit line. And here's a map. The purplish pinkish shade is what it looks like. It's almost entirely contiguous, except for a small break along Highway 4 between Central and East County, and then some pockets out in East County, including Discovery Bay and the Byron Airport. Yeah, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's down there. So the county does have a plan, has always had a plan for growth at the Byron Airport. Mostly, kind of delivery. That was one of the few expansions of the urban line back in the 90s, I think. And because Doherty Valley was a county project, and now the city, it's been absorbed and annexed into the city of San Ramon. So item 9, we're almost there, folks. Adoption of the Measure J growth management element. Basically, CCTA created a template that all of the jurisdictions are required to adopt, or developed a consistent element as part of their general plan, which really outlines all the growth management components. So it's not just a CCTA thing, it becomes a city thing. And something like this is something we have on file. It's not something that the city has to prove each checklist, unless they adopt a new growth management element, and then they need to provide you and us with that. But otherwise, probably their growth management element was adopted 10 years ago or something like that. So it's the same thing for all the checklists. Checklist item 10, posting of signs. So when Measure J funds a project, we want the public to know about it because, well, I might be letting the secret out of the bag, but we're going to be going after a new measure in a few years, and we need all the positive advertising we can get. We want to get as many projects to construction in the next few years with signs out in front of them as we can. So if there's a project that's accepting more than $250,000 of Measure J money, they better have a sign up there with our new logo. And we provide we provide specifications, we provide everything for the cities. It's really easy for them. And I think a good addition to the checklist, and I've included this in the directions, but I think we can make it more clear as part of the template, is that they provide us pictures, showing the project and the sign. I want proof.
Matt, I have an addition for that.
Okay.
So all of the paratransit agencies, they do have signs on their buses, but they're about this big.
Okay.
I have noticed, and I'm like, what does that say? And I'm like, oh, funded by CCTA. That might be something to make a lot bigger.
I like
So
that.
just a note.
Yep. Nope. Anything that advertises.
I'm in favor of the pictures.
Okay.
Submit that, they have to submit proof.
I agree. Item 11, maintenance of effort. So maintenance of effort is not real, it's about maintenance, but maintenance of effort is more to do with what were they doing before Measure J? How are they spending their maintenance funds before Measure J? And since they get that 18% of the measure back, how has that affected their expenditures on maintenance? The goal was that they would not supplant their pre-Measure J maintenance dollars with the Measure J dollars. The goal was that they would continue that pre-Measure J funding and expand, enhance. So before Measure J started, we kind of established a baseline for each jurisdiction, what they had averaged over the past, I think, 5 to 10 years. So that became their baseline. So they have to report what they are spending on, on top of their local funds, on top of that. And generally, they're all, it varies some years, but generally, a lot of the cities are spending 3-4 times their MOE requirement. But this is something that is good for you guys to look at because it changes every year. It's a good question to ask. Why is your, you know, why are you spending lower amounts this year versus last year? Something I'll suggest for our template for the presentations is, you know, let us know, what are your plans for spending the money? What do you generally spend your money on? What are your plans? How do you see it affecting your pavement program, things like that? Or do you tend to spend it on different modes? So I think asking for a little more information there in the presentation would be good. It's before it was reconstructed, yeah.
Matt?
I decided to go with the worst maintenance issue I could find. Yeah.
Matt, so when we check for that, if we're talking about pre-Measure J, that's pre-2009, right?
Yes.
So is there any kind of calculating, you know, just cost of living or whatever you call it?
We haven't done that, but that's something we can consider. So I am going to take this to the board as well for approval to release the new checklist.
Yeah.
So I always talk about ideas for additions,
I
so,
mean, just as time goes on, that's
Yeah.
going to become more
no,
dramatic. I
it's
would
a great
assume.
point.
Well, I think you kind of showed that a little bit with your talk, showing like one of the things you showed us at one point was like the ratings of all
The PCI.
The PCI, yeah.
kind of like what they had spent and then showing what they had spent on the, using what they, how they spent Measure J funds.
Right.
There's a slideshow that, Mike showed.
Yeah, trying to track expenditures of Measure J funds versus how well their pavement is doing. Yeah.
Right. The percentage of disbursement, so to speak, annual disbursement. It's interesting, you know, even this MOE is a little tricky because in my mind, I would build in a riser, so to speak, on whatever the 2009 number was, based on increases in costs and stuff like that. It might not be enough to just add on the Measure J to the previous number, but rather that number should probably have grown by about 20% in at least, or more than that during that time. Just thinking out loud.
Yeah, so either applying a growth factor to the requirement or. Yeah, right, to the base, yeah, gotcha, yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to take notes here at the same time. I think that's a great suggestion.
Sorry about that, yep.
No. This computer
Yeah,
wants to reboot. Okay.
I would also add to that, because we've talked about this a couple times. It would be good maybe if every city, if you're doing a template, we have like a chart with the number of pedestrian deaths or injuries, bike and vehicular, and they should have to look up that information, so it sort of holds them accountable to it. I know it's not directly in the checklist, but it does fit this template that we're talking about. And we've all asked questions along those lines from city after city, and it would be good to sort of have that standard and them know that.
Can I make a point about that, though? Because if the cities contract with the sheriff's office, they don't actually maintain that information.
So for the county,
So the county, they have to get it from the county, and they kind of like can't. So it's almost like a request that we should be asking from the county sheriff to provide that information. So I know, because I served on the traffic safety committee for Orinda, and we're now kind of having like them keep track every month of it. But before, they basically submit it to the sheriff's department, and they keep no records of that information.
well, and again, so going back to the kind of the model with HCD, Vision Zero is probably tracking this, right? I mean, in other words, let's not create yet another place that somebody has to say the same thing to a different set of people. But is there, I mean, maybe we can pull in from Vision Zero or some, maybe Vision Zero isn't taking any kind of like reporting from these jurisdictions, but I would think that countywide, that's one of I mean, that's their whole purpose, is to try and get that metric down. how could they not be watching that metric? They need to be, they must be getting data.
Yeah, so they're, at Cal, they do maintain a database called TIMS, and it's a collision database. So we could either, provide a link to that database and say, hey, download your city's data ahead of your presentation, or if we felt that's too onerous, staff could kind of prepare a countywide collision, report for you guys.
I know this is going to sound weird.
And yeah, that is part of our Vision Zero planning, so we could do that as part of a Vision Zero presentation to this group.
I know this is going to sound weird coming from the data guy, but I don't suppose that Vision Zero has a dashboard or something like that we could just simply look at.
There's our Vision Zero policy, that doesn't necessarily have a standalone dashboard, though we do have our data.ccta.net, which does have actually that collision data in it. It's a heat map.
Heat map.
Interesting. Yeah, it might be, okay.
Yeah.
Is it, isn't that part of your division, that your planning division?
Maybe.
I have to say, it's a very nice heat map. I
Yes.
look at it often.
Yeah, I'll have to get this, yeah, I should share it with this group, because there is good information on there.
And I guess even within that, trying not to complicate things, but we also have to be able to compare apples to apples within the city. And so if once they're looking at that list from Cal and your heat map and stuff, it's easy to put in like 4 years. Same with this maintenance item here at number 11, right? And it goes to somebody who was saying about the cost changing over time. I think it would just be good to see where they did it 2 years ago, what their plan is now on not every number, every metric, but this one, yeah. Because this is something we could hold them accountable if we could see that past 6 set of numbers. They also don't seem to know it, we're talking about the staff turnover. And so it might help them to understand this, because we're also, 4 years back? So where are they going in the next 2 years, too?
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed this group, if they present a project that they've done, kind of bring us up to speed on what's happening today. Is there, a baseline change of, safety incidents from when they made the improvement to today? Have they seen anything, or even just anecdotally that, it seems like they're using it more for school, routes to school, et cetera. Yeah, bring us up to current.
Well, I think that's a good point, because this is basically based on 2006 requirements you guys came up with. But there's so many more, it's like state laws that have come down, the safe streets, safe routes to schools, complete streets, all that kind of stuff that isn't in any of this. It doesn't show up in what we're requesting.
Right.
And I think it is kind of, how are they kind of implementing, those other additional requirements?
Great, yeah, I think those are good suggestions, because, yeah, we do want to be addressing all these newer initiatives that aren't, discreetly listed or mentioned in Measure J.
One I would really, really like to see is, and I can't remember the name of it, but the one that if you don't have a safe and secure, like at the Sharrow thing, where they have to lower the speed limit, because I was basically told, I go through and it's supposed to be, a minimum of 35. I don't think communities are doing that. They're really ignoring it, and they are. It's a lot, and they're just ignoring it as somebody, And I was told, well, it's only a quarter of a mile distance. Why are you concerned about it? Because, getting hit by a cart going 50 miles an hour, I die, and if it's going 30, I don't.
Yeah, we are kind of updating our funding policies to no longer fund Sharrows. I mean, unfortunately, there may be places where it gets nothing because of that, but, you know, the hope is to make streets safer with better improvements. Sharrows are the chevrons with the bike that you see painted kind of in the middle of a lane where,
Those, that's what I thought, but those are actually, I mean, I'd like to see those, because if there's no bike lane, to me, that's like the safest. When I see that, then the car is like, why is this, shouldn't I guess, but why is this bicycle is taking the whole lane? Because if I see a Cheryl, I feel, I'm gonna take the lane anyway if there's no bike lane. But I just feel like, if this, that way, I don't got somebody saying, why is this guy? I think Cheryls are actually a good thing. If there's not a bike lane, you want a Cheryl.
Well, what they're supposed to do if they're sharrows, they're supposed to reduce the speed limits. Like in Orinda, where the sharrow is, it's a 40-mile-an-hour road. And even if I take it, a car going, and I have to go across in freeways coming into the sharrow at 40 miles an hour. And they are legally supposed to, the state did not lower it enough, but if you have a sharrow, they're supposed to, a maximum is like 35. And communities aren't doing it. So I agree with you, like I love the, you know, the streets and stuff like say in Berkeley where they have the bike boulevards and those are lower speed. But if they're not, if you're riding on, like San Pablo Dam Road, it's basically a sharrow because they don't have a safe shoulder. And them going 50 miles an hour, that's not safer. Do you know what I mean? Like, we want that to become safe for a bicyclist.
Well, yeah, I mean, I bicycle a lot, but the Cheryls are really important to have on the road if you don't have a bike lane. Because a lot of drivers, they don't realize, why is this bicyclist taking the lane? They just assume that you shouldn't be there. To me, it helps a lot. I've just noticed when I'm riding, there's a Cheryl there, people like, okay, it says right there, we got to share the lane with them, so.
yeah, and I agree. I'm the same type of bicyclist. I want the car behind me to know why I'm there, you know, but CCTA is trying to plan for kind of all ages, all abilities, and you just can't throw a kid, you know, into some of those conditions. And so that's been kind of the push, is just to really design facilities for all ages and abilities.
Since we're on this,
Yeah.
and maybe, so you know, some cities do a really good job. Is this, are we on the YouTube? Okay, well, I'll just say Martinez doesn't do a good job. And I'm from Martinez. That was not up to some of the other cities we have. So, I mean, some cities you don't even have to do it. I don't know how you would do it, but it'd be nice if there was one page. And I don't try to, even though I'm a bicyclist, I try not to ask bicycle questions because I know we have a bicycle advisory committee. So when I do, I mean, I really like look for pedestrians and also bicyclists, but then also public transit. And so it would be nice to, and maybe to have a page where they can list like all the public transit they have, all the bus routes that go through there. At least we're making them look up this information. It'd be nice if on one page, and then maybe have a question, do they have a bicycle master plan? And and also a pedestrian walkability study. Every city should have somebody do this walkability study. And I recommend anybody to look up San Francisco. They have, like I know I mentioned earlier, but they have every city should be doing that. Or make some where they could everybody at least walk to all the sidewalks and see, you know, because in Martinez it's really bad. People people walk in the streets. I walk in the streets because you can't walk on the sidewalks with all the cars and all the other stuff. But it'd be nice if we could just ask them this, or I don't know how you'd want to do it, but it'd be nice if it was just on one page, pedestrian, bicycle, public transit, where we could just have some basic questions. They could list all their infrastructure. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Matt, to build on what he's saying, I do think we need to move into like an FAQ page, and I think it would be helpful for them, because we are generally we do have somebody in here asking about bus routes and train routes, and other people in here who are asking bike routes. Like you said earlier, right, I always ask, how are you working, on routes of regional significance to coordinate signal timing? If even, and I know it's always evolving, but if you could give them 10 questions that they could prepare for, and I'm not saying create 10 more slides.
Doesn't have to be in the report, but they should be prepared to answer, right?
And, because they could do better, right? And we've seen some of these guys really struggle with these questions and almost not, I don't want to say disrespect us, because that's not their intention, but I think we could hold them to a higher standard.
I think there was one presentation that kind of impressed us in terms of kind of laying everything out in a way where, we really could go through the checklist and a lot of our questions were answered. I think that was City of Orinda. Didn't we, say, oh, this is a decent template? So, not Orinda? Moraga? Moraga? Okay. So maybe that is something that you can start from. Yeah, it was close.
Yep.
Neighbors.
Remember that conversation, yes.
In the general theme here, I wanted to just, I guess, foreshadow that I will tend to be asking questions about bus stops also because, and I'm new to this body and your sphere of influence, but I believe that CCTA is trying to promote the idea of signage that's sort of uniform and wayfinding that's more easy for people from different places to follow. And bus stops tend to be, in my advocacy, in our more urban area over there, every time there's a problem with bus stop, I get a different answer about who's responsible for the bus stop. And because sometimes it's the city, sometimes it's the development that's in front of, sometimes it's the county, sometimes it's the bus companies, sometimes it's BART. For example, the people who wait at the BART station for the Soul Trans bus, there are regularly 40 people standing in the rain every single day to get a bus home to Vallejo. And apparently, if I understand it right, it's like BART. BART, are they going to care about people standing in the rain for a bus? So I think if anything we can do to promote the idea of some kind of uniformity of taking responsibility for bus stops would be helpful. And if nothing else, if we promote the idea that every bus stop has a sign on it that says, if there's a problem here, call these people, So if there's anything in our work where we're trying to encourage people to spend their money in the right way, that it could help make the bus riding experience more attractive, would be good.
That's fascinating because when I use the transit app, I don't know if you use the transit app, it's great, fantastic. But the last time I used the transit app, it asked me, hey, while you're waiting here, is this site clean? Does it seem safe here? So those kinds of pointers are being taken in. Now, that doesn't mean that they're getting routed to whoever this magic variable entity is that's responsible for that particular place. But it does look like some data is being collected there.
Great feedback. Appreciate it. One more item. Item 12, submittal of local streets and roads maintenance. I think it should say reports. There's 2 reports that are required for each fiscal year. And the first one is the summary page where they're listing, how much they received from us in that fiscal year, how much they had in the bank before, prior to this fiscal year, then actually what categories they spent the money on, and then kind of interest and other questions, but really to give us an idea of what they're spending on and then kind of the rate that they're spending it. And if you see a city that has $10 million in the bank and they've only spent, $1 million this fiscal year or last fiscal year, feel free to say, what are you doing with that $10 million? You know, I mean, that's sometimes a question I'd like to ask.
Yeah.
So that summary sheet is really good for that, for just, you know, and there was a time when one city came in a couple years ago that it looked really odd what they were reporting. It, you know, it didn't look like they were spending enough money. But so what I did is I prepared a report of 10 years of their summary sheets. And you were able to see that over those 10 years, they had actually spent roughly the same amount that had come in. It just that one year, they happened to be holding on to some money. So that does happen. So if you need more information, and the city can't answer it, well, first ask the city, but if we need more backup, we can kind of prepare a report, if you need, yeah, that type of information.
Well, why aren't you asking them that kind of questions? I mean,
Well, so, because I'm looking at all of them and I can kind of see.
I mean, I'm just assuming you guys are asking them that stuff. I mean, it's not just us and the board that looks at this. I mean, you guys should be asking those questions too.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain questions we can ask, but certain questions, you know, where,
Why not? That doesn't make sense to me.
I mean,
if I was a citizen and my half cent tail sex is going to you guys, I expect you guys should be asking anything you see that's out of the ordinary. You're the ones that are connected to it more than anybody.
so there's nothing against them holding on to money in their account. They can save up for a large paving program or some large project. So that's why you should be asking the question, and why I don't necessarily, if something was odd looking, I would ask, but I can't say, why are you spending your money on this and not on this, as long as it's an eligible expenditure. But, you know, when you see someone who's got 10 million, ask them, are you saving up for a project, or what's going on here? And I may have already asked that question of them. We can, you know, I understand what you're saying. We can dig to a certain amount, but as long as they're kind of following the general eligibility, like I can't question certain things. My board can, but I can't. But you can.
So basically, it's us and the board, right? Is that what you're saying? Because I just assumed you guys are asking them all these questions.
Like I said, we're checking to make sure the expenditures are eligible. So that's where I draw the line, making sure the expenditures are eligible. If you think they're not spending them at the right pace or on the right projects, feel free to weigh in. Yeah.
Can I ask, I'm not sure to what extent, maybe we can ask them to include like a high-risk compliance flag? Just
High risk.
I mean, I guess in a compliance area where they may trigger like a fail, or if they're coming close to like triggering a compliance. Like I know we've had some, we've had some people,
yeah,
or some
yellow
cities
flag
come
or
in
red flag, yeah.
where they didn't have any development built at all. And in my mind, I'm thinking that, okay, well, the state has a mandate. And so at what level are you not, looking at it from a predictive perspective, at what level are you not going to meet that mandate, and then what are the consequences that may take place? I don't know if that's possible, but.
I think those are questions you guys have to ask, because they are consistent with state law. You know, they've done the zoning, but the production may be slow for market reasons or what have you. You know, we can't penalize them for that. The state doesn't penalize them for that, but you can, you know, yeah. So that 13 is really just extra credit if they want to tell us about something that we don't know about, and I've had one city do that once. Ultimately, we're going to take this to the board. We're not proposing adding any new requirements. What we talked about today, aren't checklist requirements, they're presentation requirements. there's a little more on that. But, so, yeah, the recommendation is to release the new checklist, which is in your packet, for years 24, 25, and allow jurisdictions to submit for compliance or determination of compliance, and then the two next fiscal years of LSM funds. So we really want to actively encourage early submittals of checklists. We should have been through all of the checklists about 6 months ago, but they all came in April, May, and June. Instead of, we're going to release it next month, and then they have till next June 30th to submit. So they have over a year to submit. They all somehow come in the last 2 to 3 months. We'd like to space it out over the last year. This is another one of those things that I would like to give them each a specified time. You will submit this day. It was written in the measure that they have a year to submit, a year season to submit. So I would love to change that. I will ask the board again this year. Really, that's more for me and for you guys to manage our time. But also I encourage you all to reach out to the cities you represent. If you need staff who works on the checklist, I can put you in touch with them. But they should know that you're waiting on their checklist. You expect the checklist to be here at a certain time. There are some cities that just plan on a certain month, and they do the same month every year, no matter what. It's generally the cities that have new staff and turnover in staff where it's variable, and we get it at the last minute. So if you know you've got a city with new staff, or this time your city's submitted at the very, end of the cycle, I'm already reaching out to them, but it couldn't hurt to have their representative reach out to them as well and know that there's more eyes on them.
Matt, do you mind if I ask one clarification? Yeah. So we basically saw everything. They were showing us 22, 23, and then we paid them back. And now it's going to be 24, 25, and I'm kind of confused of where you have the 25, 26, and 26, 27.
Yeah, it took me a while to get all this straight. So the checklist is based on calendar years. So the reporting period is January to December of those 2 years. We then pay them their LSM allocation for 2 fiscal years, but that basically we start with the last fiscal year that we've just received. Actually, we don't have 25, 26 yet. We will have it as of June 30th. Yeah. So starting in August or September, we have all our final revenues, and we're able to start transmitting that. So basically a checklist that comes in, if a checklist came in in June, their money would be waiting for them in August or September. And then a year from them, that anniversary, they would get the second year. So it's more about a timing of when the funds are available, and then reporting on kind of the last 2 available calendar years. It's a very weird thing, and I always go by, okay, the last year of the calendar is the first year of the fiscal year. So I always know if it's 24, 25, then we start the fiscal years with the 25. That's more for me and getting my staff reports correct. But yeah, it's a weird timing thing in terms of the fiscal years versus the calendar years. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah. So 6 months into this year, they're reporting on last year and the year before. So if they're submitting on time, the reports can be timely. It's when they've submitted late and then we're getting to the checklist 6 months later that it feels like, 2022, that was a while ago. So yeah, so that's what I plan on taking to the board. And then, the last bullet is, what do you guys want on the checklist presentation? And I think I've heard a lot of that today already. I've included a few suggestions. So adding ADU production to their housing report, uses of the ADUs. I know you guys have asked, how do your ADUs get used? Are they on Airbnb? Are they actual mother-in-laws or your kids, or are you just renting it out? You know, that one I mentioned earlier, typical uses of LSM funding, your pavement management plan, how you plan to improve your pavement condition index, using Measure J funds. So those are suggestions I had. I've got about 10 from you guys from today, which is good. I'm going to take these to the board. But anything else while we're here?
Matt, I thought I would just run through very quickly, just like I was taking notes as we were all going down, so going around. So just to reiterate or summarize, so like a FAQ or what their presentation should include, obviously checking, making sure they're addressing all of the checklist items, bringing members up to date on the projects that were completed in those years. So highlighting CCTA collaborative projects, I think we're fairly interested in those, and there's a lot, including a map, not only of their city, but the projects that they're talking about. You know, all of those items that you included there, absolutely. Safety, you know, the safety information, you know, maybe through TIMS, and then addressing, you know, all types of transportation modes, bike plan, public transit, bus stops, and then if we have a CAC position open, they could possibly address that. And then using Moraga as an example. So yeah, just to summarize all of the, you know, all of the suggestions.
I'm just looking forward, Matt, to the concept that these could be standardized. I guess we hadn't really explored that, so I'm excited and thank you for working to do that. I think that should hopefully make your job easier, but all of us to like put everything on par and understanding it better. So thank you.
Just so you guys know, probably, you know, 6 or 7 years ago, cities used to just come in, walk in the door, sit here and say, any questions? So we have evolved since then. And it was really the pandemic where we were all in boxes and we're like, we need to see something. You need to show us something, you know? And so we've, I think, really evolved from there. And I want to keep evolving this to make it more beneficial for you.
Thank you so much for exploring this space with us. We really appreciate it. So Emily, have we received any written or remote public comments?
We do have a virtual public comment. Rosa, go ahead. Looks like you're muted.
I had to press unmute. Thank you very much for your comments. Talking about evolving. So my feedback is the goal is to capture action and feedback on past comments. So I really loved hearing all the comments from the committee. I think actually the feedback from the committee is really helpful. And so my idea is an electronic checklist that captures feedback from the committee and actually any metrics or any activities that are actually achieved by the cities. And it would be interesting to capture these electronically so we can go back in time to see if any past feedback is actually acted on by the city in the future. And that's my feedback on number one, an electronic checklist. And then my second item that I really care about is a bike network for e-bikes and motorcycles, but it's like a connected bike network. We do have bike lanes, but I think in terms of the goal, it would be connectivity between the cities. one of the issues that that I have in my community is probably, or that everyone has right now, is the e-bikes causing safety and accidents. And I do want to focus on just a connected bike network that is focused on addressing the electronic bikes. That's feedback number 2. And then looking forward also to capturing actual performance metrics, like improving safety or like getting rid of bottlenecks in the transportation network. So thank you for your comments. Those are, and and I think everyone else captured all the other comments. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, former member Esquivel, for joining us again. Your comments are noted. So that concludes our regular agenda items. So the next item on the agenda is member and staff comments.
I have one.
Member
And
Miller.
it's just a reminder to everybody, I'm not trying to weed anybody out, but if you have not filled out your Form 700, which was due on April 1st, please, obviously, we need to get all those in. I don't know, maybe we're already at 100% compliance, but I just wanted to mention that.
All right. Are there any other members of the public that would like to make a comment?
We have no public comment, written or virtual.
Okay. The next item is correspondence and communications, which we have none. And if there are any topics that members would like to agendize on a future agenda, please raise your hand. Yes, Member Erickson?
I was just gonna say, like, maybe just a quick little presentation on all of the projects that you guys are coordinating on, because every single presentation is like, we coordinated with CCTA to do X. And so I think like having just you get to have a brag show about what you guys are up to would be nice. Like, I didn't realize you were funding paratransit, as an example.
Great. I do have some ideas for presentations. Now that we're, through this checklist season, I think we'll have opportunities to get some really interesting items in front of you.
Emily, do we have any public comment who would like to add any agendized items?
No public comment, written or virtual.
Okay, and with that, our next meeting is proposed for May 27th, and this meeting is now adjourned at 8:22.